particular way of doing this life. The goal is to make sure that your child go to school. The goal is to make sure that you don't struggle when it comes to welcome again to my YouTube channel, and thank you so much for the support. And in today's episode, I want us to discuss about a conversation, a continuation of a conversation that we are having on my Instagram page. So I did this question tag, which I indicated various ways that people can save for their education policy or for their children's education expenses. This was the question tag. This question tag made me think, why not do a YouTube video and try to expound or to explain or to discuss on these various ways you can save for your education and why you should consider some of them or the others. And I want to do a disclaimer at first is this is not an advice to make you stop to save where you're saving, but it's just a general overview of various places you can do your saving and the whys and the why not and what you get by the end of the day. So this is just a general advice, and as we always say, there's no part. This question tag made me think, why not do a YouTube video and try to expound or to explain or to discuss on these various ways you can save for your education and why you should consider some of them or the other. Disclaimer, this is not an advice to make you stop to save where you're saving, but it's just a general overview of various places you can do your saving and the whys and the why not and what you get by the end of the day. So this is just a general advice, and as we always say, there's no particular way of doing this life. The goal is to make sure that your child go to school. The goal is to make sure that you don't struggle when it comes to paying for your child's education. So the first tag was an education policy. I have had this conversation over and over, and it is in my previous videos that I have uploaded on my YouTube channel. You can check them here. And I just want to do an overview of an education policy. It amazes me because of the protection aspect, nothing else, just the protection aspect, because I know that in case I'm not there as a parent, I know that my child will be taken care by the insurance company, or they will be given the amount of money that I could have saved by that time. So I don't have that fear of what happens to my child if I'm not there. So that is the biggest win-win of an education policy, the protection aspect. So the next thing was I grouped this into land, business, or assets, and most of the people, some people voted on that. And yes, you can buy a land which will sell later when your child will be joining high school or university, or you can have an asset which you will sell at that point, or you can start a business which will give you an income at that point. That is so agreeable. But now and there are advantages and disadvantages. First of all, I always ask this conversation mostly when it comes to land. Do you actually have a land for yourself? Have you built a home for yourself? Or are you going to sell the only piece of land that you have been able to acquire? Remember, lands in Kenya are so expensive. And let me tell you, that time when you want to liquidify an asset and you're in a hurry to do that, most of the time you will sell it at a loss because you're in a hurry to do that. But it's not that I'm ruling it out, but that is the reality. Most of the time when it comes that, let's say like this January, when we were trying to take our children back to school, what would have happened if I had bought a land? Who would you sell to that land, that particular piece of land? Most of the time you'll get that because you're selling it in a rush, you'll find that you'll sell it on a loss. Let's talk about business. A business is good, and I would recommend even starting a business for your child. We call it generational wealth because you know your child can come in and earn from that business. But when it comes to education plans, or when it comes to education expenses, let me explain something about a business. What happens to the risk involved in operating a business? What happens? that in case, let's say, there is theft or your business fails, we have seen that, or COVID happens at that point when you really need to do the savings. Two, are we talking about you will sell this business at a later date, or are we talking about that the income I'm going, or the profit I'm going to make from my business, that is the money that I will use? So how are you going to make sure that you have saved this amount of money? Or are you going to keep trading, so I get this profit, I take it back to the business so that it gives me more profit, that more profit is what I will use when my child will be going to high school? So there are odds and there are advantages. The good thing about a business is that business can be run by that child of yours later in time. But the question is, are you going to how are you going to compound those profits to make sure by the end of the day you're going to make something out of that? The other people talked about assets. Assets can be a range of things. So I'm assuming the assets you're talking about here are, maybe you buy a property and you're willing to liquidify that later in time. So as I always said, what will be the market value at that point when your child will be going to school? Would the needs of those assets will have changed? Like, maybe, for example, is that asset earning you interest? Is it appreciating in value, or is it depreciating in value? Because you cannot like buy a car and say, I will sell this car when my child will be going to school. But you can buy a cow, and if you feed it well, it will have grown and you can be able to sell it for that purpose. That is another way. Another thing is, when you're buying assets, you'll be required to give a lump sum. Do you have the lump sum? Or can we just have a savings account where you will accumulate money over time? So this is another question you should ask yourself if you're concentrating on getting assets to fund your child's education. And the last thing was money market fund, which I stroked with SACCO, and also I stroked with banks. So these are short-term investment because the liquidity value of your money is so high. You can be able to access your money anytime you want. In a SACCO, you can be able to sell your shares. In a SACCO, you can be able to withdraw from that account. So another concentration on a SACCO. If I'm saving my child's education in a SACCO, am I looking at the dividends I earn from that SACCO? Am I looking at when they will be going to high school or university, I will get a loan at that particular point? And how am I going to pay this loan? And let me tell you, so many people have made this mistake. You get a loan to educate your child. You know how that goes. Most of us have the help, and we know how that really goes. It's messy because the loan accumulates in interest, the employment level are different, and let me tell you, we are bringing up children or generation that you're talking about these days. These are people who will just drop a course on the way because they developed an interest on something. So you might be educating a child to become a lawyer, and then in between your child feels, I don't want to be a lawyer, I want to be a DJ, and you took a loan. So just look at the odds. Know what is your concentration. Are you going to withdraw those savings, or at that point concentrate on withdrawing your savings from the SACCO, or are you going to concentrate on dividends, or what is your concentration in that SACCO? Another thing, what happens if you're not there? Will they have a problem as a family to liquidify the same? And then the last thing is money market fund. A money market fund is good, but how disciplined are you to hold? The other thing is a money market fund. So a money market fund is even way better when it comes to return than actually even an education policy or most of the investments around. But this is the question. A money market fund is a current account. That means your money is not fixed in any way. So how disciplined are you to save and wait for those 10 years or 14 years? Or are you going to be tempted in between and use this money for other purposes and find by the time you're getting to pay the high school or the university, you actually don't have the money? So the only problem is money market will test your patience, money market will test your discipline, and how well are you to make sure that you will save to that account. So that is money market fund. It is good, it has good returns, the interest is compounded, but how is your discipline to make sure that you don't withdraw that money? How well do you know yourself and trust yourself that money can lie there, and you know you will access it in 10 years or 20 years old, the time that your child will be going to high school? And then the last thing was the banks. I know most of you have accounts which are bank accounts which you use to do your savings for your child's education. This is my question: is it a current account? 2, have you talked about the transactions that comes with your withdrawals? Have you talked about the deduction that they will make, the management fee that will be charged on your money? Have you talked about the tax? Have you looked into it? Are you making money in that bank, or are you by the end of the day getting a loss from the taxes, from the management fee, and from the transaction fee too? Can your family access that money if you were not there? What would be the process? Would it be so long and so tiresome? Ask yourself those questions before you consider anything. We know there are other investments which we are not profiled on my post. These are the treasury bills and the bonds. The question I ask is, how well are you going to how long can you hold your money in the bond? 2, how well are you going to use the coupon from your bonds? How well are you going to use it? And is there protection? What happens? Who will do the claim? Who will do the follow-up with the government in case you're not there? Ask those questions. What is the return? What are you going to use with the return that you get half yearly or annually from the bonds? Is this money going to give you the return that you wanted, and the protection that you wanted, and the peace of mind that comes with knowing that by the end of the day you have some money put aside for your child's education? So those are various investments that you can work with, or you can work with for your education, for your child's education, and the most suggested from my post. And this is the question, as I always said, I'll finish with this lastly: know yourself and know that what works for another person might not work for you, and that is completely okay, because we are different. We have various money personalities that makes us way different with the instruments or the vehicles, or the investment vehicles, or the savings account that we interact with. By the end of the day, we are making sure that our children will go to the right schools. We are making sure that we'll be able to fund for their college and university, or university, college, and high school fees comfortably. And we're making sure that if they want to change their course in between, or they want to change their career path in between, me as a parent, I can be able to afford to switch from school to DJing, or from this to the other thing, to supporting their talent. That is the whole point. Don't get it twisted. The whole point is to have money that can support your child when it comes to those expenses. So make sure you sit down with a financial advisor, analyze your money personality, and get to know the various options that are there in the market, and get to choose the various options that can work with your money personality and that can suit your need accordingly, even from your affordability to the point of getting the right products. I hope this information was helpful, and I hope that you're going to make the best decision to saving towards your child's education. Thank you so much.